I married my wife by going against my family wishes, but today she suggested an open marriage. From the moment I met my wife, I knew she was special. My family, on the other hand, didn't see it that way. They warned me, begged me, and even threatened to cut ties if I went through with marrying her. She's not the one for you, they said. You'll regret this someday. But love makes you blind, and I was determined to prove everyone wrong. So, against my family's wishes, I married her, believing we'd build a life full of love and loyalty. For years, I stood by her through thick and thin, choosing her over my family at every turn. Even when the relationships with my parents and siblings grew distant, I told myself it was worth it. I thought we were happy. I thought we were a team. There were moments when I'd wonder if I'd made the right choice. Like when my mother stopped calling, or when my sister wouldn't invite me to her children's birthdays. But my wife would reassure me. We have each other, she'd say, smiling as she wrapped her arms around me. And for a while, that was enough. That all changed one evening, in the middle of what I thought was just another ordinary weeknight. We were sitting in the living room, the soft hum of the television filling the space as I scrolled mindlessly on my phone. My wife turned to me, her expression unusually serious. I've been thinking, she started, her voice measured, about us, about our marriage. I set my phone down, suddenly uneasy. Okay, I prompted, not sure where she was going with this. She wasn't one for dramatic conversations, so I braced myself for something important. I think we should try an open marriage, she said, as casually as if she were suggesting takeout for dinner. At first, I thought I misheard her. What? I asked, my voice cracking slightly. She didn't waver. I think it might be good for us. You know, to explore ourselves a little. To break out of the routine. I stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. Explore ourselves? I repeated, disbelief dripping from my tone. You're talking about sleeping with other people. It's not just about that, she said quickly. It's about freedom, growth. I feel like we've been stuck lately, and maybe this is what we need to reignite things. Reignite. The word hit me like a slap. I had no idea she felt this way. Sure, life had become routine, work, dinner, weekends spent watching movies or running errands. But isn't that what happens in a marriage? Isn't that just part of building a life together? It wasn't exciting, but it was stable, and I thought stability meant we were doing okay. Apparently, I was wrong. Is this because of someone else? I finally asked, my voice trembling. It was the only explanation that made sense to me. Maybe there was someone new, someone she wanted to justify seeing. No, she said quickly, shaking her head. This isn't about anyone specific. It's about us. I just feel like we've lost something, and maybe this is what we need to find it again. I don't know what to say, I admitted after a long pause. This isn't what I signed up for. I'm not saying we have to do it right away, she said, reaching for my hand. I pulled away instinctively. I just want you to think about it. That's all I'm asking. I nodded numbly, not because I agreed, but because I didn't know what else to do. My mind was spinning. How had we gotten here? Was she really so unhappy that this seemed like a solution? And more importantly, had I been blind to the signs? For the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation. It consumed me, coloring every interaction we had. When she smiled at me, I wondered if it was forced. When she kissed me goodnight, I questioned whether she was picturing someone else. I felt like I was losing her, and the worst part was, I didn't know how to stop it. Finally, I decided I couldn't keep this to myself. I needed someone to talk to, someone who could help me make sense of it all. Against my better judgment, I called my sister. We hadn't been close in years, not since my wife and I got married, but she was family, and I didn't know who else to turn to. When she answered the phone, her voice was cautious. Hey, this is unexpected. I know, I said quickly. I need to talk to someone. Is everything okay? She asked, her tone softening slightly. No, I admitted. It's about my wife. There was a pause, and I could almost hear the judgment forming on her lips. But to her credit, she didn't say anything harsh. Instead, she simply said, go on. I told her everything, the conversation, my wife's reasoning, my own confusion and hurt. When I was done, There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Well, my sister finally said, I hate to say I told you so, but don't. I cut her off. I don't need that right now. Fine, she said, her tone softening again. But honestly, you need to ask yourself something. Do you really want to be with someone who doesn't value what you've built together? Because from where I'm standing, it sounds like she's already checked out. Her words hit me harder than I expected. Was she right? Had my wife already given up on us? And if so, was there even a point in trying to fix things? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying our conversation in my head, dissecting every word, every expression. By the time morning came, I had made a decision. I needed answers. I needed to know if my wife was truly committed to saving our marriage, or if this was her way of easing into an exit strategy. Over breakfast, I brought it up again. I've been thinking about what you said, I started, my voice steady. She looked up from her coffee, her expression unreadable. And I need to know, are you unhappy? I mean, really unhappy? Is this open marriage idea just a way to test the waters before you leave? Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of guilt. But she quickly shook her head. No, of course not. I don't want to leave you. I love you. I think this could make us stronger. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that this was just a misguided attempt to fix things, not a sign that she was already halfway out the door. But something in my gut told me there was more to the story. Over the next few weeks, things between us grew tense. We tiptoed around each other, avoiding the topic but never really addressing the elephant in the room. I tried to act normal, but every time she went out without me, I found myself wondering what, or who, she was doing. Trust, once solid and unshakable, had begun to crack. And then, one evening, I found the proof I didn't want to see. She had left her laptop open on the dining table while she went to shower. I wasn't planning to snoop, but when I passed by and saw an email notification pop up, my curiosity got the better of me. I clicked on it, and my heart sank. It was from someone named David, and it wasn't just casual conversation. The messages were flirtatious, suggestive, and far too familiar for my comfort. My hands shook as I scrolled through the thread, each message feeling like a dagger to the chest. She hadn't just been thinking about an open marriage, she had already started auditioning candidates. When she came back downstairs, I was waiting for her, the laptop open in front of me. Her face went pale when she saw what I was looking at. Care to explain? I asked, my voice cold. I didn't mean for you to find out like this, she stammered, tears welling up in her eyes. Then how did you mean for me to find out? I shot back. Or were you planning to keep this little side project a secret? She started to cry, but I didn't feel any sympathy. I had sacrificed so much for her, for us, and this was how she repaid me. I made a mistake, she said through her tears. I didn't know how to tell you. A mistake? I repeated, laughing bitterly. This isn't a mistake. This is a choice. You chose to betray me. The argument that followed was the ugliest we'd ever had. She tried to justify her actions, saying she felt neglected, that she needed excitement, that she didn't mean to hurt me. But none of it mattered. The damage was done. In the end, I told her I needed space. I packed a bag and left the house, unsure of where I was going but certain I couldn't stay there. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I stayed with a friend, who graciously offered me his couch and a sympathetic ear. My family reached out, tentatively at first, but when they realized I was ready to talk, they welcomed me back with open arms. It was humbling, admitting they had been right all along, but it was also comforting to know they still cared. As for my wife, she called and texted constantly, begging for another chance. But every time I thought about forgiving her, I remembered the look on her face when I confronted her, the guilt, the fear, but not the regret. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done, she was sorry she'd been caught. Eventually, I filed for divorce. It was the hardest decision I've ever made, but also the most necessary. I realized that I deserved better than someone who would take my love and loyalty for granted. Looking back, I see the red flags I ignored, the warnings I brushed aside in the name of love. But I also see the strength it took to walk away, to rebuild my life from the ground up. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. This is the story of how I learned to value myself again, even after losing everything I thought I wanted. It's a painful lesson, but one I wouldn't trade for anything, because sometimes, losing someone else is the only way to find yourself.